This week's parasha, Parashat Shemini, starts off as one of the happiest parashiot in the whole Torah. It's the Chanukat HaMizbeach, the inauguration of the temple of the Mishkan, the tabernacle, the home for HaKadosh Baruch Hu down below, the Dira B'Tachtonim. We did it. We brought the Shechina down. Moshe and Aharon did the Avodah properly, and the fire came down. Yishtabach Shemo. We did it. We brought Hashem down into this world, so to speak. But then, in all this excitement, all this happiness, something goes wrong. Nadav and Avihu, Aharon's two older sons, go into the temple, into a certain spot into the temple. Machlok exactly how far in they went, but they go into the Beit HaMikdash, they go into the Mishkan with a foreign fire, and they die. And then it becomes a sad mourning as Aharon and his remaining two sons become onenim. They go into their whole mourning as they're inaugurating the first temple in the desert. Okay, so I want to go and take a closer look at Nadav and Avihu's. I'm scared to say the word sin because the Moshe Rabbeinu when he consoles Aharon in our parasha, he says this is what we're talking about. This is what we always spoke about. Bikrovai Kadesh, that Hashem is gonna sanctify the temple with the ones that are closest to Him. Meaning Nadav and Avihu are seen as very, very close. The Hasidic masters, Rabbi Kana Bar Ilan as well, are so careful. They don't even want to say what they did was Nadav. What was a sin? They just want to say that they were so excited. They got too close to Hashem. They came lifnei Hashem. They were doing a Yom Kippur service and got too close, and they got burnt because of it. But Chazal come along, and Chazal try to look into the text and try to find some kind of a hint to figure out what they did wrong. So let's look at the psukim. They each took their fire pan, and they put a fire into the fire pan, and they brought the incense spice, they brought the ketoret, and they came close to Hashem, they brought forth to Hashem an esh zara, a foreign fire, asher lo tziva otam, that they were not commanded to bring. But they say esh mifnei Hashem, and then a fire comes out, but tochal otam, and it consumes them, vayamutu lifnei Hashem, and they die before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Nadav and Avihu died because of this foreign fire that they brought in. But again, Chazal tried to figure out what was the mistake. Was it a fire? Was it a foreign fire? Was it because they weren't commanded? And then they try to connect it to other psukim. Maybe they were drunk when they went in. There's one opinion. Maybe it's because they weren't married. They weren't wearing the right kind of clothing. They weren't kohanim gedolim. They didn't have kids. We have all of these lists of things they might have done wrong. And because Chazal tried to figure it out, it's not clear from the text. What did they do? Because if you look closer and closer, and this you can PM me for Divrei Torah from the previous years, we went through a lot of the opinions. We also spoke about how they were doing a Yom Kippur service properly. We brought down machlokot of the Tzedukim versus the Prushim. The Sadducees, those that didn't believe in the oral Torah, they were doing it wrong. Nadav and Avihu are doing it right. So we tried to give different angles. What were Nadav and Avihu actually trying to do, and what went wrong? So in this Torah, I want to focus on one approach. It's one of the more intense approaches that's a little bit harder to explain away. It's a Gemara in Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin Daf Nun Bet Amud Aleph says the Gemara. Ukvar hayu Moshe v'Aaron malchin baderech. Moshe and Aaron, this is now they're trying to figure out what led to this sin, or what was the sin, or what did they do wrong, what was wrong. So he said one day, Moshe Rabbeinu, they were walking along the way. Then Nadav and Avihu malchin harehen, and Nadav and Avihu were walking behind Moshe and Aharon. The Chol Yisrael harehen, and all the Jewish people were walking behind them. Amar lo Nadav Avihu, and Nadav said to Avihu, Matai yamutu shnei zekenim halalu. When are these two old guys going to die? Vani v'atan and higatador, and then you and I are going to be able to lead this generation, lead the door. Amar lahen HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Said Hashem to them, let's really see who is going to bury who. Amar Papa. This is like what Papa says. This is like the famous saying that people say. Nefishe gamle save de tiine mashche de hugne, which means there are many old camels that are loaded with the skins of young camels. And ultimately, that's exactly what's going to happen. Nadav and Avihu are going to die young. Okay, so this is a scary Gemara because it's pretty harsh. I mean, the language over here. When are these two old guys going to die so that we can take over? So it's a little bit harder to try to explain away this Gemara. And those who take it more literally are going to say, "Whoa, there's a certain level of arrogance, a certain level of chas v'shalom that they see themselves. Oh, we should be taking over right now. They're trying to push things a little bit faster." Then there's the whole issue that this sounds like lashon hara. Like, how can you say these kind of things? Such bad, terrible speech. Actually, the Chavetz Chaim, Chavetz Chaim says it can't be, because we see that Chazal hold him such a high level. Moshe Rabbeinu held him such a high level. They're so holy. The Mekubalim speak about how holy they are. The Hasidim speak about where their sparks are going to go into the future. Nadav and Avihu are considered to be very high level, so it can't be that that's what they were saying. So rather, the Chavetz Chaim tries to erase the literal approach, and he says, no, they didn't mean that. They said rather what they were trying to say is Hine Kvar Iskinu, Moshe and Aaron, they got old already. But Ubeshach Katan, B'vaday Yamutu, and pretty soon they're probably going to die. Ube'al korchenu, and against our will, we're going to have to lead the Jewish people. We're going to have to ask the Rim Tumim what to do. So really, they were just saying like, no, we have to figure out what to do, because eventually we're going to be the next leaders. But says the Chavetz Chaim, Behine lashon zeh od shnei zkenim halalu metim, that the language that one of these two old guys are going to die, hu lashon garua meod. It's a terrible language. It's not the way you speak. Vayalem lomar pen chas v'shalom yamut. They should have said, if God forbid they're going to die. That's how they should have said it. V'lachen av shemachshavatam haya letova hadibur lo hayafe ulechen yeshiv HaKadosh Baruch Hu nira mi kover mi. He says, no, really their intentions were okay. And I guess maybe the Chavetz Chaim is going to learn. Maybe they didn't die from this; they died from the foreign fire. Because Hashem's going to say, "Oh, you think you're going to be really going to live? The way you're thinking, you're jumping the gun a little bit too much." But the Chavetz Chaim is saying is they weren't such level of lashon hara. They just came out wrong, and on their high level, coming out wrong, it really doesn't look nice. Okay, that's the Chavetz Chaim. But according to the simple interpretation, there seems to have been a lashon hara. Actually, the Hida over here, he brings down other sources. That say that, from our Girsa, and it's on Sanhedrin, Nadav, it says Nadav speaks to Avihu. It says Amar lo Nadav la'Avihu, matay mutar shnei zkenim ha'alu. We don't see that Avihu spoke over here. So based on that's even scarier, because when we're dealing with lashon hara, even the listener, if he's quiet and he listens and he accepts, he himself is part of it as well. Now he's going to die as well. A scary idea. Although he did bring down other sources that he found that seems like that they both spoke. Or actually, if you open up the Midrash, because we have this in Sanhedrin. We also find this by us in the Midrash Rabbah. So says the Midrash, Melamed shayu Moshe v'Aaron hochin tehila. The from pasuk they're learning from Shemot. It says that Moshe and Aaron walked up first, and they would follow them. The kol yisrael harehen, all the Jewish people were following them even afterwards. So we have like an order of how people were going. So when they were ascending up the mountain, Moshe was going up to get the Torah. We had levels. We had Moshe and Aaron on top, Nadav and Avihu in the middle, the rest of the Jewish people behind. V'omrim, and they said, Matai shnei zkenim halalu metim. One of these two old guys going to die. I don't know hagim srara ala tzibur, and then we're going to be able to lead the people. Now here it says Ba'omrim. Sounds like they're both saying it. But says the Midrash, Rabbi Yudin b'shem Rabbi Avihu Amar b'fiyim amru zeh lazeh. According to Rabbi Yudin, according to this Girsa over here, they're both speaking to each other. And the Chida uses this as one of the ways to say, okay, it's not, you have to actually speak together at this level. Rabbi Pinchas Amar b'libam hirharu. Rabbi Pinchas says, no, this all took place in their thoughts. This is all what they were thinking in the back of their mind. When are we going to take over? When are we going to be the ones in charge? And even for that thought over here, and this actually works a little bit better to say, if it was more deep inside, then it's not as bad of a sin. I mean, it's still not proper to have the thoughts, but the idea is that Hashem was trying to find how can Nadav and Avihu have been killed? Well, they're even being killed for a hir. There's such a high tzaddikim, such a high level of tzaddikim that Hashem's going to get them, but not for even saying anything, just for thinking in their hearts, when are they going to take over? Now, actually, I did see some say that why do they want to take over? This was like an internal thing. They really want to do great things. Like they weren't thinking negative against Moshe and Aaron. There was this deep desire. There were a bunch point to the fact that they were very young right now. They were unmarried. They were young, and they had this great desire to get close to Hashem, and they wanted to have leadership roles, and they wanted to do big things. I actually once heard a flip idea from Noach Weinberg from Esha Torah Laba Shalom. He was like, the mistake was they were asking, when are they going to die to take over? What do you mean? Go help them right now. If you have the ability to help Klal Yisrael, step it up and do big things right now. And that was part of their mistake. Now, the Yarot Devash, and he says very good. He says, what were they thinking? When are we going to take over? They understood that Moshe and Aaron really couldn't be the leaders. Moshe and Aaron are from the Levi'im, from the Kohanim. We're going to know in the future there's going to be the issue of the Chashmonaim, the Kohanim, who are the Maccabees, who are Kohanim, who are going to take over leadership roles for too long. And Hashem, eventually, a couple of years past Chanukah, they're all going to lose all their leadership because they're Kohanim. They're not kings. Now, Moshe and Aaron, they don't have the right lineage to be kings. So says the Yarot Devash beautifully that that what do we know about the lineage of Nadav and Avihu? So this we spoke in the past to try to explain where their alacrity, where their zrizut came from, where their excitement came from. They were the nephews of Nachshon ben Aminadav, because Aharon had married Nachshon's wife Elisheva bat Aminadav. So their uncle was Nachshon. Now Nachshon, we know that on this first day of inauguration, he was the first tribe to bring the korban for the kings. He even brought his own ketoret, because each of the Nasim brought a ketoret as well, and that also becomes part of the question: what did Nadav and Avihu do wrong? If every Nasi could bring a ketoret too, they could also bring incense. So what's wrong with them? Their uncle just brought one. But who was their uncle? Their uncle was the head of the tribe of Yehuda, and because their uncle had run into the sea and split the Yam Suf in the Shvi Shel Pesach when they crossed through the water, Nachshon had this koach of running in first, getting excited. They had learned from their uncle Nachshon, but Nachshon, we know, is the tribe of Yehuda. That's the tribe of the kingship. So their mother is from Yehuda. So says they are Tevash, unbelievable. They are part Kohen, but they're also part Kohen, part Levi, but they're also half Yehuda. So they're saying, okay, it's not so proper that Moshe and Aharon are the leaders right now, because that's not the way it's supposed to be. When are we going to take over? Because we have the Yehuda spark in us, and with our half lineage of Yehuda, we can now be able to rule the people. Okay, those are some approaches to try to justify how they could say what they say, how could they say when are we going to take over. But I want to look at the Hatam Sofer right now. The Hatam Sofer learns it a little more harshly. He sees it as lashon hara. He doesn't necessarily come around and try to give an explanation behind it, at least not in this particular piece. But says the Hatam Sofer that what they spoke about Aharon and Moshe, it's actually going to explain why they were bringing the Ketoret in the first place, and why they brought this foreign fire in, and how they died. Meaning, he doesn't see the lashon hara as the reason for their death. He sees a mistaken way to try to fix the lashon hara. Okay, says the Chatam Sofer. Vaychu b'nei Aaron, he quotes our pasuk, and they took this ish machtato, they took the fire pan, but then ultimately there was an esh zara. Nirali milashon esh zara hinehem chatu belashon hara. He says, it appears to me that from the language of an esh zara, that it's a foreign fire that caused their death. It's because of the sin of lashon hara. Why? Shamru matayamutu betzkenim halalu vani vata nanhi gador. Because he quotes our Gemara from Sanhedrin when they said, one of these two older guys is going to die, so we can take over. ולתקן עבירה זו, לקחו קטורת לכפר. And he says, and that explains, you know what they're doing? They realized they'd messed up. They spoke incorrectly. There was lashon hara over here, and now they want to do tshuva. So how do you do teshuvah? How do you fix the sin of lashon hara? You bring a ketoret. Why? Ki ketoret mechaper al lashon hara. Because the ketoret fixes lashon hara. Okay, so where do we know this from? So the Chatam Sofer doesn't source this, but the Chatam Sofer knows the whole Torah. If you open up the Gemara in Gemara Yoma, Daf Mem Dalet Amud Aleph, says the Gemara, Uktoret Mechaper, the Gemara they're speaking about different aspects of the Beit Mishkan. What brings kapara? So the Gemara asks, does Ketoret actually bring kapara? Yes, the Ketoret brings kapara. The Hatani Rabbi Hananya, because Rabbi Hananya taught, Lamadnu the Ketoret shemechaperet, sheneemar vayitenet Ketoret vechaper al ha'am. He quotes a pasuk where the incense was placed to bring an atonement for the people. V'tan dever Rabbi Ishmael, alma Ketoret mechaperet. And says Rabbi Ishmael, what does the Ketoret come to atone for? Al lashon hara. Says the Gemara in Yoma, Ketoret is a tikkun for lashon hara. Yavo davar shebachashai vechaper al maaseh hashai. He says, let something that's done in secret, the incense which was brought into the heichal, it's brought into, there are different questions about how far did they go with this incense. The outer courtyard, the kodesh, the kodesh kodashim, well, over here they're going inside with it, so let something that deals with something that's internal, slander, which is normally said in private, lashon hara, people don't do it in private, let's have an avodah that's done inside, that's done more in secret. Also, when the ketoret was brought, everybody else would leave. They would say they would leave the room, and let the Kohen bring Ketoret in. So it's more of a secret type of avodah. So that's going to fix the secrets of the sin of the lashon hara. We have ourselves the Gemara in Yoma. The Chatam Sofer was hinting to that. Why are they bringing Ketoret? They must be bringing Ketoret because he understood that Gemara in Sanhedrin, they were trying to bring a tikkun. They were trying to do teshuvah for saying what they said. Now, interestingly enough, there is a bit of a question on this because there's a Gemara. There's another Gemara. This is in Zvachim Daf Pechet Amud Bet. There, this says the Gemara Me'il. The coat of the Kohen Gadol mechaper al lashon hara. That brings kapara for lashon hara. So is it the ketoret, or is the avodah bringing this incense in, or is it the coat that the Kohen Gadol wears? Ask the Gemara Minayin. How do we know that the me'il brings teshuvah for lashon hara? Amar Rabbi Chanina, says Rabbi Chanina, Yavo davar shebakol, avechaper al kol hara. Let something that makes a lot of noise, because the bottom of the coat, the bottom of the meal had those pa'amonim, they had those bells. So let something that makes noise be a kapara for the voice that made this noise. But then the Gemara has a problem, because we have our other Gemara in Yoma. So the Gemara itself asks a stira. He says, I don't understand. But we learned from Tana Rabbi Hanania that Ketoret brings kapara for lashon hara through Rabbi Hanania, through Rabbi Yishmael. They quote our Gemara in Yoma. So I don't understand. What is it? Is it the Ketoret that brings it? Or is it the Me'il? And also, our Gemara in Yoma said that let something that's said in secret, that's done quietly in private, let it come and fix what was said in private. And now our Gemara in Zvachim is saying, let something that makes a lot of noise out loud. So what is it? Is it out loud or is it in private? So the Gemara asks stira. What are we trying to fix over here? Kashya lashon hara. We have ourselves a kushiyah. So the Gemara eventually answers, for lashon hara nami kashya ha betzina ha befarhesia. He says, no. You should know regarding lashon hara. There's different ways people speak lashon hara. There's lashon hara that's said in private, and there's lashon hara that's also made more public. So especially today with our social media, we have public lashon hara in much greater kind of ways. So all the lashon hara that was done in private will be fixed by the Ketoret, and all the lashon hara that's done in public will be fixed by the Me'il. So he says, so interesting here. Nadav and Avihu said spoken lashon hara according to the way the Chatam Sofer is understanding our Gemara. So now they're going to be bringing the Ketoret to try to make a tikkun. Actually, there's other reasons brought down. They weren't wearing the proper clothing of the Kohen Gadol. Maybe they weren't wearing the clothing of the Me'il as well. Because again, we said the two girsas, did they actually say it out loud what they were thinking, or did they only think it inside? Was it b'tzin'ah? Was it quietly? Was it b'chashai, hidden, or was it b'farhesia? We actually have those two versions in the midrash, which actually goes very well with the two opinions for what they might have done wrong. Okay, so let's get back to our Chatam Sofer. So based on our Gemara and Sanhedrin, when they said one of these two old guys is going to die, that was lashon hara. And that's why now they're bringing the Ketoret, because we saw from our other Gemarot that Ketoret fixes lashon hara. But here was their actual mistake. But how does the fire work? Where did the fire come from for the Ketoret? It came from the wood of the fig tree. Where does this come from? So we have a Mishnah in Tamid. This is a Mishnah Tamid, Perik Bet, Mishnah Hey, says as follows. Baru misham atzei te'ena yafin. For this particular fire, which was the Ketoret fire, it says that the Kohanim would go and they would look among all the different logs, and they would find very good logs, atzei te'ena yafin, the good logs from the fig trees. This was the type of wood that was used to burn the Ketoret, rather than using like the regular coals that would become ashes. And they have some kind of a pshat approach that this kind of wood would burn very, very quickly. And even though the halacha is that other things could work as well, as the Mefarshim say, v'inami shel egoz v'shel et shemen, you could use you could also use walnut wood, and you can use olive branches. All that would be good, but the te'ena itself has something special, and has something special not just on the pshat level, but also on the midrashic level. So now, if we jump to a Rashi on Zivachim, Daf Nun Chet Amud Aleph, because the Gemara over there quotes our Mishnah and mentions that they would take the good wood of the figs. Why the figs? So says Rashi, Beshel Tana you regilin, and he said that's what they used to use. That was the normal. They liked the fig wood. The tam agadahu, but if you open up the midrashic idea, shebo hayta takana la'adam harishon vayasu lahem chagurot, because the initial sin of Adam harishon was the sin of lashon hara, that he and Chava accepted the speech of the snake, and now they use the fig leaves to make their belt. That was part of the tikkun for lashon hara. You find about the Tosfot Yom Tov as well. And I saw one of the other mefarshim on the Mishnah also quotes that the Rosh says this as well. The Yachin quotes this Rashi and says he learns this from Rashi because part of them of getting embarrassed when they realized that they were naked, they realized they had listened to the lashon hara. So now these fig leaves become part of the tikkun. Okay, now let's get back to our Chatam Sofer, because he brings down this Rashi, he brings down this Tosfot Yom Tov to come back to Nadav and Avihu to explain what was the mistake of the Esh Zara. Okay, so says the Says the Chatam Sofer. So why would they bring in the Ketoret? Because the Ketoret brings a kapara for lashon hara. But says the Chatam Sofer, as we learn from our Mishnah in Tamid, we learn from the Gemara, from Rashi in Zvachim, they would make the fire from the fig wood. Upeush Rashi b'Zvachim daf nun chet umayti le Tosfot Yom Tov v'Masechet Tamid, and as we said, Rashi and Tosfot Yom Tov, we quoted also the Rosh and others, they bring down mishum sheba nitkenu Adam v'Chava, because that was where the tikkun came for Adam v'Chava, v'asulem chagurot, and they made for themselves these belts, these coverings for their nakedness. V'nira haperush ki chet etz hadat ayashi kiblu lashon hara shel nachash. So the Chatam Sofer explains what was the mistake of this, what was their sin in the Garden of Eden, that they accepted the lashon hara of the snake. V'tiknu ba'alei te'ena, and they fixed it through the leaves of the te'ena. So the fig and the fig leaves, it's also, so not only does the ketoret fixed lashon hara, but the wood that was burned to burn the ketoret, which is the fig wood, that also is a tikkun for the etz hadat, a tikkun for the sin from the nachash. We spoke in the past that of all the korbanot that were brought on inauguration day, on this Yom Shemini, so many of them were coming to fix all different kinds of sins, the sins of the egel, to trying to reawaken the Akedat Yitzchak. Also, they say it was coming to fix the sin of Adam Rishon. That's part of the reason why, or maybe they wanted to fix the sin of Adam Rishon, because other Mefarshim say that why did they go in there drunk? Why did they drink wine? Because they were drinking the etz hadat to try to make it back in. So there is this concept of they weren't wearing the right clothes. They're kind of like becoming naked again, so to speak. So they were trying to fix the sin of Adam Rishon. So here, the Chatam Sofer are trying to fix their own sin of lashon hara, which was the initial sin of Adam Rishon. But the way to fix that is you need the ketoret, but you also need to have the proper fig wood. Al ken yukach leketoret kachlei etz te'ena, because the figs fixed the sin of lashon hara of the snake. That's why we take for the ketoret, which also fixes lashon hara. You're going to make the coals from the atzei te'ena, from the wood of the fig tree. But now the Chatam Sofer explains what was their mistake. Hem lakhu esh zara shelo ma'atzei te'ena. Where did their fire come from? It was an esh zara. It did not come from the figs. Velo kiper lashon hara shelahem. And because they didn't use the fig wood, they didn't awaken the tikkun of the initial lashon hara sin, and they couldn't fix their sin of lashon hara. It wasn't the full tikkun, and that's why they had to die. That is the Chatam Sofer. Okay, Bezrat Hashem, I don't know if we can top that Chatam Sofer, but let's try to give one more approach. This one is in the Yismach Moshe. This is his commentary on Parashat Acharei Mot. Says the Yismach Moshe as follows. So he brings down that, again, Chazal gave numerous things, numerous ideas for what they might have done wrong. And he wants to focus on three of them. He focuses on the fact that they didn't have wives. I'm going to skip that one. He focuses on two more. The fact that they were shtuya yayin, that they had come in there drunk. According to one Chazal, they had come in there drunk. And last year we sent out a Dvar Torah discussing yayin being 70, shibim panim Torah, shar nun. We had deep ideas, not taking it literally. But he says, okay, they went in there drunk. They had drunk wine. And then the other approach was our Gemara right now, of them coming in, them speaking lashon hara, saying, when are these two zkini, when are these two old guys going to die, so that we can take over? So explains the Yismach Moshe, says all these opinions of Chazal, elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim, they all have to have some aspect of truth to them. They all have to kind of work together. So he says, let's try to explain our Gemara of them saying one of these two zkinim gonna die, and then with that we can then connect it to the other opinions. Okay, so he says as follows: this Gemara is ma'amar meguna me'od af le'ishei ha'amoni. He says people don't speak this way. Even regular people would never say these kind of things about one of these old guys gonna die. This is like a very harsh language, and also Nadav and Avihu was high level, like Moshe says. Ani Hashem gdolim mimeni umimecha. Moshe is gonna console Aaron in the midrash and say, B'kovai Kadesh in our pasuk, they're holier than me and you. So how could these holy people say such a language? It can't be. Also, why did they call Moshe and Aaron skinim? Why do they call them the old people? Also, how come it says in the Gemara that Moshe and Aaron malchin, Moshe and Aaron were walking first, then Nadav and Avihu malchin acharehen, and Nadav and Avihu are walking after them? Like, well, why do we have that whole intro? What do we need that for? And what does it mean that Moshe and Aaron are walking first, and Nadav and Avihu are walking after them? What do we need this information for? Okay. Ukdeli Hashev goes. He said, in order to answer all this, he says, let me look at a different teaching from the Anshe Beit Shemesh. If you open up Shmuel Aleph, there's a story there with the people of Beit Shemesh. I live in Beit Shemesh. Whenever I find Torah on the Beit Shemesh people, it's fascinating. There's a story that the Aron had gotten taken captive, and the Goyim had taken it. And it was taken all the way out to Kiryat Gat, and eventually it makes it back to the Jewish people through Beit Shemesh, and the people all came out and they got very excited, and they started dancing, and they were very, very happy, and it was a great simcha v'mitzvah that the Aron came back. But it seems that something went wrong. They looked where they shouldn't have looked, touched where they shouldn't have touched. There was a little bit something had gone wrong, and a lot of the Anshe Beit Shemesh died. And it's a famous question of the Mefarshim. What did the Anshe Beit Shemesh do wrong? They were dancing and partying with the Aron coming back. They were so happy. There was such a level of simcha. What went wrong? So the Yismach Moshe now has a principle. It's a principle based on a bunch of chazals, based on a Gemara, Chagidah, Daf Hey Amud Bet. Actually, Ayen the Leshem and Hakdamot and Sha'arim, where he actually has a whole big discussion. What's the actual proper girsa? But let's go according to what the Yismach Moshe learns. Says the Gemara that in the outer batim, in the outer places to serve God, there's hod ve'adar lefanab, there's simcha, there's good happiness. But in the inner chambers, there's pachad. There's more of a fear. There's more of an awe. Says the Yismach Moshe, when serving God, there's different levels. There's different levels of closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Different areas of relating to Hashem. In the outer areas, you could have simcha. But and he says that simcha is very important. It's davar yakar me'od. Ivdot Hashem b'simcha. We have the punishments in Tochacha. Tachat asher lo avat Hashem elokecha b'simcha. We need to have simcha. Simcha makes the ahavat Hashem so much stronger. So we need simcha. But he says simcha on this high level. That's only in the outer batim. But in the inner chambers, it's about pachad. It's about fear. It's about awe of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he says that the Aron, the holy ark, that's like the holiest item, the holiest utensil, the holiest kli in the Mishkan, it was taken captive, but now it's on its way back home. The Aron is an inner chamber. It's a holy of holy things. So therefore, he says, you want to know why the Anshe Beit Shemesh, why they died, why were they hit by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, why a bunch of them were killed, because they were having a lot of simcha with an inner chamber kli. The Aron is inner. It's inner house. And in the inner house, you have to have more awe, you have to have more fear. It's actually, now I'm thinking about it, I might explain a little bit of the machloket between Michal and David, and he was dancing so much, he said you shouldn't be dancing so much. Over there, Chazal learned that it was proper that David and Melech danced, and he should have danced even more. This seems to be going a little bit in the opposite direction. Okay, we have to figure out how this works with the principle. But he says, why were the Anshe Beit Shemesh called Beit Shemesh? Maybe they're called the Beit Shemesh people because of this action, because they were acting like the Maaseh Shemesh. They were acting like the Shemesh she'ovedet rak b'shir u'b'simcha, because the sun, how does the sun serve God? With shir and simcha. We mentioned once in the past in the Kli Yakar, but from the pasuk, v'hu kechatan yoseh mechupato, the sun comes out like a chatan. He's happy, he's excited. There's shir, there's simcha. The Beit Shemesh people are dancing and singing, and they're happy because they're like the Shemesh. That's what they're all about. Aval. Ein sham mekoma etzel Aron, but this is not proper when you're with the Aron. The Aron is from the inner chambers, and in the inner chambers we have to have fear, we have to have awe. So he says, based on this, maybe we can also understand what was going on. I'm skipping a little bit what was going on with Nadav and Avihu. He says that when it comes to tzaddikim, there's different levels of tzaddikim. You have some tzaddikim who serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with great simcha. It's a great high level, but some of them have only made it to the level of bibachutz. They haven't made it into inner chambers yet. And there are some tzaddikim who have made it into the inner chambers. They've seen Ro'im Penei HaMelech, and then they have to serve God with pachad. He says, Moshe and Aharon, Moshe, we know, had aspakleri ha'me'erai. He got to see HaKadosh Baruch Hu in ways nobody else saw, and we know that Aharon was considered to be equal to Moshe, Aharon, Moshe, that they were equal to each other. So the two of them, they were zocheh to get very close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They were zocheh to go into the inner chamber. Literally, Kohanim Gedolim, they're bringing down the fire by going in. They're the first ones to go in there to bring down the fire. They're close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but they understand that when you go close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how do the inner chambers work? It works with yirah. It works through awe of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It works through fear. For Moshe Rabbeinu, your eyes, he tells everybody, what does Hashem want from you except the fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Ma Hashem would say, what does Hashem want from you except for yirah? And we say for Moshe Rabbeinu, yirah is a milta zutra. It's a simple thing. Moshe Rabbeinu is all about the yirah. It's about the awe of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Explains the Yismach Moshe. Now we understand what's going on between Nadav and Avihu and Moshe and Aaron. Moshe and Aaron, they're walking first. What does it mean that they're walking first? The person who walks, he's moving, he's growing, he's doing big things. They're mahalchim. They're walking first. Nadav and Avihu are also walking, but they're walking behind. They are one level. They're madrega. Their level is behind Moshe and Aaron. Moshe and Aaron was zocheh to go inside. When they go inside, they have much more awe. They have much more fear and pachad of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. While Nadav and Avihu, at least at this point in their lives, they weren't zocheh to go inside yet. They weren't able to make it in yet. So they didn't understand. They served God on the outside. What's the outside? It's simcha. It's happiness. It's excitement. It's rizut. They want to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They're just jumping out to go and serve God. They want to get lifnei Hashem. They want to get close. They want to dance and they want to do big things. They didn't realize though that Moshe and Aaron were on a different level. They knew they were higher. That's why they're walking behind. But they didn't realize that the higher level was a level going in the inside is a level of awe. It's a level of yirah. It's a level of pachad that they didn't understand yet. They hadn't gone into that level yet. And their mistake was they saw Moshe and Aaron. They said, why aren't they dancing? Why aren't they in great simcha? They saw a little bit more of an awe face. Where's the simcha? You should be serving God with simcha. And that's what they said. Oh, it must be. Now, they're not saying it in a negative way. It must be their skenim. They're older. When they're more elderly, it's harder to show that level of dancing and singing and zimra and rina and the simcha. It's harder to show it. So they were saying, oh, I wonder, and now they were speaking kavod shamayim, like it's chaval. They got older, and it's natural when they get older, they can't dance and do the same level of simcha. But when is it going to be our turn? We can immediately, if we could serve God now, we can really make a great statement, a great statement of simcha. And it sounds like they jumped the gun right now in our parasha, and they had such simcha. We got to do it. If Moshe and Aaron aren't going to do it, we got to do it. We got to bring that level of simcha. So now, calling Moshe and Aaron skenim, that wasn't an insult. That was actually them being dan l'kav zachut. They're saying, no, we know we're on a lesser level than Moshe and Aaron, but we also know they're older now, and therefore this version of serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this level of simcha, they're too old to do it right now, and that's how they were understanding it. So when it's going to be our turn, because we still have the energy, we're young, we can still do this level of simcha. So says the Yismach Moshe, this also explains now why they were drunk on wine. What's wine all about? So we know, Chazal tell us, V'yayin esamach levav enosh. Yayin brings simcha. Yayin brings the happiness. It brings the joy. So they said, oh, we want to bring simcha to this. We want to be serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu with wine. We want to do it in the right kind of way. Now we're going to learn after their death, Parshat Acharemot, it's asur to go into the Holy of Holies or to go into the Holy, to walk into the Beit Midrash. The Kohen cannot serve if he drank any wine. When you're going inside, when you're going into the place of the pachad, the place of the yirah, it's not proper. Yes, wine corresponds to simcha, and simcha is a way to serve God, but that's in the outer chambers. In the inner chambers, you're not allowed to have wine. The mistake of Nadav and Avihu was they didn't understand that level of Moshe and Aaron. They knew Moshe and Aaron were greater, but they didn't understand that on that greater level was a level of internal, a level of going inside, going into the inner chambers. And in the inner chambers, it's a world of yirah. And therefore, when they ran in with the wine, with the simcha, everything got messed over. You can't be in here. Yes, simcha is important, but you're in the wrong place with the wrong kind of avodah right now. They were coming too close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu with too much simcha, a service like the Anshe Beit Shemesh were doing. It's the right service, but in the wrong place, at the wrong time. And then he takes it back to our actual psukim as well, because the pasuk says they brought an esh zara, they brought a foreign fire, asher lo tziva otam. It was a fire that was foreign because they weren't commanded. You have to have a certain level of pachad, a certain level of yirah, a certain level of fear. You can't just bring what you want right now because you think it's the right thing to do right now. The other ideas that they never asked they didn't ask the halacha first to Moshe and Aaron. They were doing halachot in front of the rabbis. There's a certain level of, you're excited and you're happy and you want to do big things and you want to get karov and you want to go with lifnei Hashem. But the place you want to go to needs more yirah. It needs more pachad, and you need a different kind of avodah. And that's asher lo tziva otam. The mistake was they're doing things on their own from the simcha, as opposed to holding back, asking out of the yirah, because it's a makom of yirah. That's the approach of the Yismach Moshe. Shabbat Shalom.